Welcome, Mr. Leno. Lovely to have you with us. Thank you for coming along. The hopes, dreams, and lives of creatures who live at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. I think that's a very good one, but I don't know how to make it narrative. I really don't know how to make that narrative. Yeah, he didn't say that, Socks. I know you know that, but he didn't say that. He didn't say that at all. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I'm going to admit a tiny smidgen of bias. Buffy remains my favourite television series ever. I've always enjoyed its perfect balance of drama and comedy, the elegant and insightful writing, and the utterly charming cast. But Behind the Screens isn't really about television shows, so here I'm going to discuss the Buffy role-playing game. Now, in theory, this actually makes sense even in this episode of Behind the Screens. Bear with me here, but if I've lined everything up correctly, this time I'm making an appeal to play a wider variety of systems, I'm covering the way to take a beloved property and fit it to an existing rule set, and I'm doing this one, which covers a lesser known specialist rule set, but one based on a flexible underlying engine. So, essentially, if I've done it right, by the end of this episode of Behind the Screens, you'll be completely indoctrinated into the cult of playing all sorts of different games rather than just one favoured RPG. Don't panic. It's a good cult. We eat toad on Saturdays. So, Buffy the RPG. First things first. It's based on the Unisystem rules, and last time I broadly explained that this is both true and irrelevant. Unisystem wasn't sold like a generic set of rules and then adapted to the fictional verse of choice. It was shipped as a complete system, and the commonalities of the Unisystem underpinnings were simply pre-built into the specialist set you picked off the shelf. More specifically, the Buffy RPG was the first of the rule sets based on the cinematic form of the Unisystem rules. While it might seem pretty obvious that a universe based in movies and television would suit a cinematic rule set, the term is actually more general than that. It means the style of grand operatic storytelling, whether taken from the cinema, from comic books, novels, short stories, or dredged from the febrile imagination of your deeply damaged and twisted GM, which I assume happens with other people too. In an RPG rule set, cinematic generally means that there's a special event that can be called upon by the players, a trick or a trait that can be used at the perfect moment to carry the critical fight. It's a brief opportunity to allow the character to raise their game when they need it the most. Now, last night, the boys and I played our first game of a new RPG called Change Stars with the people who wrote it and tested it on their Diesel Shot channel. Seriously, how lovely is that? I'm still grinning about that one. Now, if you play Change Stars, and you should, it's great fun, you'll find there's a concept where you can gain an occasional powerful move in exchange for all the trauma and suffering you've been through. In Change Stars, that's called an edge break. In the Buffy game, there are a number of ways of achieving the same thing, but the most important is the drama point mechanic. In essence, the game is supposed to represent not just the Buffyverse, with all of its monsters and dangers, but also the TV show. A character has a pool of drama points that can be used to cheat death, or make a final, almost impossible task achievable when it matters most. A character starts with some drama points and can earn more through heroic feats and, much more narratively, through loss and failure. Drama points come when your friend is killed, your team defeated, or your school is destroyed. Again, my favourite use of it is the plot twist. Find yourself in real trouble because the vampires are closing in? Spend a drama point at the right moment, and you twist reality so that the GM, who's called the director in Buffy for obvious reasons, has to make an important change in the story. So in this case, the overwhelming force of vampires might suddenly be here to capture, not kill. Or maybe looking for an object of power, and once they've sidelined the player, they lose all interest in the final kill. Now this means the player has an unusual amount of involvement in the story direction. I think that's more engaging and speaks to the characters having agency, but it also makes the director specify the key plot in terms of basic locations and plot points, not in terms of highly detailed encounters. It's something that supports a very collaborative form of storytelling. Now, in terms of attributes, there are 6 basic ones, as is so often the case in RPGs. Then a character has skills in various areas that are stacked with the attributes to produce an overall ability at a task. Very similar to Traveller in that regard. There are success levels for every role to encourage people to go with the flow much of the time and only blow the story wide open occasionally. So they have not just 1 or 2, but lots of greater and greater successes. In character creation, there are also a set of qualities that give special talents and drawbacks, which, well, they do the opposite. Now, very briefly, let's mention the Slayer in the room, so to speak. How do you balance the game when one of your players is the Slayer? You do it the same way the show always did it. You make various things happen for the people who are expert researchers, hackers, witches and the like, not just for those who are skilled with pointed sticks. And after all, even the Slayerettes can deal with some occasional fighting, especially with some luck, or a few drama points. And of course, there's magic. There are magic items that anyone can use, but also powerful spells that can be cast by those with the talent to do so. Also, from the ground up, there are rules for creating your own spells, and in Buffy that's really important because the method for dealing with a particular bad actor can be a particular incantation. And magic, in the Buffyverse, has consequences. If the system interests you, and it's a worthy one for sure, all the books are available on DriveThruRPG for download, and you really only need the core book to play. It even comes with a sample adventure, which is rather beautifully in a chapter called Sweeps Week. I still grin every time I think of that.